how to talk about politics with someone who disagrees with you. Let's get into this. So I have changed my opinion on political issues throughout the years. I've had good conversations with people that actually made an impact on me. I've had unproductive conversations. So I know what it's like to talk to people and to try to change their minds, while also being open to having my mind changed myself. So as a preliminary matter, here's something that you're going to want to make sure of. Make sure that you're not on Twitter or X, as it's now called. This is just a middle school cafeteria type environment where people just shoot snippy insults at each other. You will not have a productive conversation or debate on Twitter/X. I can guarantee you that. You need to find somewhere in person to talk about this. And I mean, you don't need to find somewhere in the sense that like you're going to schedule a time to talk to them. But let's say you are talking to them and you want to convince them of something. Don't do it over X, for crying out loud. Do it in person. Worst case scenario, do it over Facebook Messenger. But you want to, best case scenario, do it in person so that you can see each other, you can talk, you can hear each other's voices, you can address what each other said mid-sentence. You can't interrupt each other, but try not to do that. But yeah, so the first tip is make sure that it's in person and especially not over X. Secondly, you want to always acknowledge their lived experience. And what I mean by that is not lived experience in what's known as more of like a social justice sense, although that's part of it. But a lot of people place emphasis on different issues. A lot of different people think that one issue is the most important versus another. Some people think that some issues are totally unimportant. A lot of Republican types are now of the belief that climate change is not an issue, that not only is it an unimportant issue, but it's not even an issue, it's a hoax. It's hard to debate with people like that. But in terms of people who think that certain things are very potent issues, like they're single issue voters or something like that, or it's their number one issue, you have to listen to why they think that, and ask them. So someone might say that they're tough on crime. They favor aggressive policies like mandatory minimums. They support the death penalty, maybe even for cases not involving murder. But yeah, listen to what they have to say. They might have life experiences that shape their political views, and in fact, they probably do. Someone might have family members who were victims of crime, or themselves, they may be victims of crime, and that's why they favor a really aggressive criminal justice system that is unsympathetic toward criminal defendants and convicted felons. This is just part of how people make their decisions, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, how they come to their conclusions. Now, as for people who think that certain issues are not important and that you think they are, this can be really tough. Try to encourage them to show the same grace that you gave them in terms of believing certain issues are important. So stress the science on climate change if you're trying to get someone to believe in climate change or to take it seriously. Emphasize that, yes, the climate has always been changing. Point out some of the issues about man-made climate change, how we just had some of the hottest 100 days on record, and make the case, make the affirmative case, and tell them that you expect them to show the good grace that you showed them, because conversations should be about mutual respect, and debates, even like arguments, should be about mutual respect. Another issue, don't use logical fallacies. There are tons of these, and sometimes people use one without even knowing that they're using one. But one logical fallacy that will quickly turn the debate into a disgusting mudslinging fest is the whataboutism fallacy. You don't want to do this. So for example, if you say Trump did this, they'll say, what about when Democrats did this? And then you say, well, yeah, but what about Trump did this? That was really bad. And they say, well, what about that time Joe Biden said something really racially insensitive, or Obama said there's 57 states or something like that? It'll get into just a big whataboutism fest that will basically destroy the conversation, destroy any productivity. You're not going to want to be there. So yeah, that's the other issue, is the fallacies. Keep your conversation partner or your debate opponent on track, and address the merits of what they say too. So you want to tell them not to use whataboutisms. You yourself do not want to use whataboutisms. Ask questions too. Ask genuine, good faith questions. So, for example, if someone says, I am voting for Trump because I think that the Democratic Party is authoritarian and divisive. Don't just say, well, Trump is more authoritarian and more divisive, even though you may legitimately believe that. Ask them. Ask them what about the Democratic Party they think is authoritarian or divisive. Ask for specific quotes. Ask for policies. Concede ground where it's necessary. Nothing is more good faith, really, than admitting that the side that you're arguing for has some flaws. And by side, I don't just mean political party, I mean the political issue. A lot of socialists will talk about how there's some flaws with socialism, or capitalists will talk about some of the flaws of capitalism. That's good faith introspection. And if you're debating the merits of some of these things with someone, it's going to be very helpful to actually suss out where you might actually agree on some of the problems. So for example, if your opponent is arguing that the Democratic Party is authoritarian and divisive, concede some ground if you have to. There are plenty of Democrats who have said divisive things before and have pursued policies which are arguably somewhat authoritarian, have had authoritarian rhetoric, but make the case that the greater authoritarianism comes from Donald Trump once you concede that, and once you're able to grapple with the fact that they have issues with the Democratic Party. You can point out, yes, there's somewhat of an issue there. I agree with you. I think we should criticize this, but I think we should also be looking at the issue on your own side that you're advocating for. And don't do it in a way that's totally just putting them on the defensive. Give them a chance to respond. Give them a chance to address their preferred political party. Another thing is, don't poison the well either. So for example, if they say something like, I think we should build a wall or something like that, don't be like, oh, that's what Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans think. Like, suppose they're a right-winger but not even a Trump supporter. So don't poison the well by bringing up other people. As I said before, and this is kind of the unifying theme of this video, is address what they said on their merits. Don't deflect. For example, if they say they don't like affirmative action or something like that, don't say, oh yeah, well the KKK is against affirmative action too. You have something in common with the KKK. I think that's a little bit problematic. Don't do that. Address what they said, because let me tell you, the KKK, the Communist Party, Hitler, Stalin, look, it doesn't matter what all these other people said. It matters what the person you're talking to has said. So address that on its merits. And lastly, make sure that the conversation ends on a good note. Don't get bitter. Don't yell. In the year 2024, it seems like things are getting increasingly difficult. I thought that 2020 seemed really bad and contentious, but here we are with a lot of Trump supporters really ardently defending their candidate, treating it like the establishment is out to kill him after 2 assassination attempts, and a lot of Democrats who are just steadfast in their view that we need to defeat Trump, and that's the most important thing and possibly the only important thing at the moment. So, both sides, regardless of who you agree with, are clashing very heavily, and we need to be part of a broader discourse, part of a stronger discourse. And of course, make sure that the person you're talking to, you at least understand that they're capable of reasoning. Because unfortunately, there are some people out there who just are too far gone. They're too zealous. They will never admit when they're wrong. They will never admit when their side screws up. And don't be like that person. Because when you act like that person, having good political conversations becomes nearly impossible. But when you're open-minded, when you stick to your principles very strongly, but are at least able to be introspective, that's when fruitful discussion happens. That's when minds can be changed. That's when you learn a thing or two and you start to consider possible weaknesses in your arguments, or maybe even strengths that you never even discovered. You learn how to better articulate the case for your candidate, for your proposed policy, whether that be on healthcare, education, climate change, immigration, crime. You learn how to better defend yourself and your principles when you talk with someone who disagrees with you. Sometimes people go way too long without talking to someone who disagrees with them, and they just become way too comfortable, way too smug. And it just seems like, yeah, they need to actually address some of the counter arguments to what they're saying. So yeah, that's my video on how to have a good conversation on politics with someone who disagrees with you. I really hope that you liked this video and you found it helpful and you'll apply some of this. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.